Have you ever watched your life fall apart? Not slowly, suddenly, the kind of collapse that changes everything. The kind that destroys the version of yourself you thought you would become. Your plans, your identity, your future. Gone. And in that moment, one question begins whispering, "What now?" Maybe you know that feeling. Maybe life has not gone the way you imagined. Maybe something broke. A dream, a relationship, your health, your certainty, your sense of who you are. And maybe, quietly, you have thought about giving up. If you have, stay with me, because one of the most powerful saints in Christian history stood exactly there. Broken, defeated, watching everything collapse. Before the world knew him as Saint Ignatius, he was simply a man whose life had fallen apart. And what happened next changed history. Stay until the end, because tonight we'll pray together. And if your heart feels tired, this story may be exactly what you needed. The life he thought he wanted. Ignatius was not born dreaming of sainthood. Far from it. He wanted ambition, recognition, glory, status, a meaningful name. He dreamed of greatness in the way many people do. Achievement, success, importance. A future that looked impressive. And honestly, that makes him deeply relatable. Because most people understand ambition. The desire to matter, to build something, to become someone, to be seen, to be respected. Maybe some listening right now know exactly that feeling. The plans, the expectations, the imagined future, the version of life you thought would happen. Ignatius had that. He was building toward it. And then, everything changed. Because sometimes, life destroys your plans before revealing your purpose. The collapse. One moment changed everything. A devastating injury, sudden, violent, unavoidable. The life he had imagined, gone. The future he had built in his mind, gone. The identity he had trusted, gone. And what remained? Pain, silence, stillness, and uncertainty. That emotional space is terrifying. Because when movement stops, thoughts begin, questions begin, fear begins. Who am I now? What happens next? What if everything I wanted is over? Some people listening understand this intimately. Maybe your collapse looked different. A health scare, a financial loss, a heartbreak, a betrayal, an unexpected ending. But collapse feels collapse. And in those moments, people often don't feel inspired. They feel broken. Ignatius likely did too. The silence that changes people. There is something strange about forced stillness. At first it feels unbearable because distraction disappears, noise disappears, and suddenly, you are left with yourself, your thoughts, your fears, your regrets, your questions. But sometimes, silence becomes the place transformation begins. Not because silence is easy, because silence is honest. Ignatius entered that silence unwillingly, and there, everything started changing. Because stripped of ambition, stripped of performance, stripped of distraction, new questions emerged. Different questions. Questions about meaning, purpose, faith, truth. And maybe this is where his story becomes deeply personal. Because many people only encounter transformation after collapse. And maybe your breaking point is not your ending. The modern heart. Today people still collapse. Maybe not physically, but emotionally, spiritually, mentally. Burnout, anxiety, emotional exhaustion, uncertainty, plans failing, dreams collapsing, identity confusion. The pain looks modern, but the emotional experience is timeless. And perhaps that's why Ignatius resonates. Because his story reminds us, collapse does not mean life is over. Sometimes collapse becomes redirection, and redirection can become transformation. That doesn't make pain easy, but it makes pain meaningful. And maybe your heart needs that tonight. Not false positivity. Hope, real hope. Because what if the chapter you hate most becomes the chapter that saves your life? Transformation. Ignatius did not become who he was in moments of success. He became who he was through surrender, through inner change, through painful transformation. And this matters, because modern culture teaches winning equals value. But faith often teaches something deeper. Transformation equals value. The becoming matters. The hidden rebuilding matters. The quiet healing matters. The slow redefinition matters. And perhaps some of you listening are exactly there. In the rebuilding, in the uncertainty, in the painful in-between. If so, hear this. You are not behind. You may be transforming. Guided prayer. Lord, for every person listening tonight, especially those who feel broken, bring hope. For those whose plans collapsed, bring peace. For hearts carrying disappointment, bring healing. For those questioning their future, bring clarity. For anyone emotionally exhausted, bring strength. For those who feel like giving up, hold them close. Through Saint Ignatius's story, remind us that endings are not always endings. That collapse is not always defeat. That pain can become transformation. That broken chapters can become sacred beginnings. Lord, heal discouraged hearts, renew tired minds, calm anxious thoughts, bring purpose where confusion lives, bring courage where fear has taken root. And if someone listening feels deeply lost tonight, shine light into that darkness. Remind them their story is not over. Amen. Final community close. If this story touched your heart, stay with us, because Divine Stories exists for moments exactly like this. Moments when life feels uncertain. Moments when faith needs to feel real. Moments when stories remind us hope is still alive. Subscribe now to Divine Stories. Every week we share powerful saint stories, miracles, emotional Christian inspiration, and prayers that strengthen the heart. And if you need prayer tonight, leave your request below. This community will pray with you. You are not alone, and your story is not over.